Hello and welcome to Carved in Stone, where I pick a topic and select my Mount Rushmore of that topic, so basically my top four. Lists, of course, are subjective, and narrowing it down to four is narrowing it down quite a bit, so I'll explain why some may fall just short of my mountain. I'm your host, Shawn Chabam, and it's Friday the 13th. Again. Exactly 1 month ago, I delivered my Mount Rushmore of Friday the 13th films. Thanks to Friday the 13th falling on a non leap year in February, we get to freak out the people with triskaidekaphobia again, but this time we'll do my Mount Rushmore of horror villains. I hope my AC/DC devil horns aren't too distracting today. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by Paramount Pictures, Universal Pictures, New Line Cinema, Orion Pictures, or any other film studios or rights holders connected to the movies and characters discussed. All rights to the movies, characters, and related properties remain with their respective owners. Any film images referenced in this episode are sourced from Wikimedia Commons and are believed to be in the public domain or used under Creative Commons licensing. We're going to have some low-hanging fruit today because I've already done 2 full episodes on picks who are on this mountain, and a third has found his way onto the mountain before as well. I don't expect you to magically recall all of them, or any of them, even if you do watch the show regularly, um, other than maybe the one I mentioned a minute ago. So let's just get right into it. Being Friday the 13th once more, let's immediately get it over with and make the first reveal Jason Voorhees of the Friday the 13th film franchise. Jason, while not the original killer, became the character most associated with the Friday the 13th films, amassing over 150 on-screen kills, some estimating it more than 200. I don't feel a real deep dive here is necessary for a film franchise that I reviewed 4 weeks ago, so if you want to see my review of the Friday the 13th franchise, just hit the link up top and it'll take you right to that video. What I will say is that because we're focusing on the villains themselves today, Jason has an iconic look that started in part 3. The creepy sound effects when he's near push his mysterious nature over the top, and he just has a knack for finding unique ways to terrorize his on-screen co-stars. His slaying across the movies consisted of stabbing with knives, ice picks, and a hammer claw, throat slashing with knives and machetes, blunt force, crushing heads, blunt objects like a wrench, impalement with spears and pitchforks. He even got more creative using a meat cleaver, a fireplace poker, a spear gun, electrocution, and even his bare hands. Unlike his mother, Jason didn't seem to have any motive at all for who, why, or how he killed, and he would just mow down anybody in his way, which makes him even more terrifying because you have no way of knowing who will be next. Now let's do another one we've discussed before, Michael Myers, the killer from the Halloween franchise. Depending on which timeline of films you watch, you may or may not get the full story on why Michael becomes a monster known to many in Haddonfield as the Boogeyman. Rob Zombie's films, as I said in my Halloween episode linked up top, go into his backstory much more than the originals. One thing remains constant though, Michael Myers is a terror. It's hard to give a total kill count given there are so many different timelines of this film, because it has multiple reimaginings, but most sources say it's in the 200 to 230 range. I didn't go back and count. Be my guest if you want to know so badly. Michael does seem to have a favorite form of killing, that being his kitchen knife, but he also uses other methods like his bare hands, strangulation, brute force, impales his victims, uses a shotgun, a corkscrew, a hammer. He drowns a victim in hot water, uses decapitation, electrocution, and more methods I haven't even mentioned. He is a menace to society and has terrorized the big screen for decades, earning him one of the 4 coveted spots on today's Mount Rushmore of horror villains. Next, and again, I talked a little bit about this guy 1 month ago, Freddy Krueger. Because Freddy does his killing in his victims' dreams, you could almost say that his primary weapon is his mind in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. However, within those dreams, he uses clawed gloves, impales his victims, crushes them, drowns them, and even transforms them into insects. He has significantly fewer kills than Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, due in large part to the fact that he enjoys toying with his victims psychologically before his kills, taking his time and really enjoying his work. Whereas Jason and Michael just go around slashing and killing any poor souls who get in their way, with more of a desire to up their body count than to take the time to enjoy their work. He is one of the toughest villains to track down because he's terrorizing kids in their dreams. So it's almost impossible to prove what's going on, and the kids are mainly believed to be going insane. That's as deep as I'll go plot wise because I'll do a mountain of these films one day. Freddy Krueger was played by Robert Englund in all films but the 2010 remake. Englund has retired from the role due to age and the physical demands, but he says he would be willing to voice animation of the character. Honorable mentions before I get back to the final selection. The closest to making it was Jigsaw, otherwise known as John Kramer of the Saw movies. Let me admit something while we're on Jigsaw. Some of the honorable mentions um, are better films than the one on the mountain, particularly the final villain, who I'll get to in a few moments. These are just the characters who are the most memorable for me. I've mentioned before that I do like some cheesy horror flicks, campy horror flicks, whatever you want to call them, and that will come out in the final reveal. This is who I like character wise, not necessarily the greatest films. With that said, another honorable mention is Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He just doesn't have enough films to make it for me. Everyone on my mountain has a plethora of movies. There are a lot of Scream films, but Ghostface isn't on here because the person or people behind the mask changes from film to film. I know that multiple people have played Jason and Michael, but the character itself remains the same. To wrap up honorable mentions, Pazuzu from The Exorcist and Reverend Henry Kane from Poltergeist. Again, just not enough screen time for either. We don't meet Kane until the second of only 3 Poltergeist films, 4 if you count the 2015 reboot. As for Pazuzu, The Exorcist is arguably the best movie I've mentioned today. Pazuzu doesn't climb my mountain because we're not always seeing Pazuzu. It's a demon possessing people, so we're still seeing some form of a human. Pazuzu is known most for its corruption of Regan McNeil in the original Exorcist film. The demon was not given a gender. I almost said it. Sorry. And at long last, I told you I like cheesiness, campiness, whatever you want to call it, and it doesn't get more cheesy or campy than a killer doll. My final selection is Chucky, otherwise known as Charles Lee Ray. Ray was known as the Lakeshore Strangler by the media until his death, at which point he used voodoo to transfer his soul into a doll's body. I'm not going to go into detail here because one day I intend to rank Child's Play films as well. As far as his methods, obviously strangulation was a favorite of his, but he wasn't entirely picky. He used knives, a voodoo doll, guns. He smothered one poor sucker with a pillow. One of the funniest deaths was in Child's Play 3 when Chucky is about to kill Colonel Cochran and the Colonel dies of a heart attack from seeing Chucky alive. Chucky is disgusted with this turn of events and severely disappointed that he misses out on the kill. His total kill count is an estimated 75 to 150 by most accounts. Chucky was also a series on USA, canceled after 3 seasons. The series was just as cheesy as the movies, which delighted me, but ended on a cliffhanger and wasn't renewed for a 4th season. It drives me bananas when a show ends a season on a cliffhanger without another season already being signed for. I'm not saying that you have to tie up every loose end, but don't give me a major cliffhanger if you don't know that a season is guaranteed to come after the episode that you're making. Chucky was voiced by Brad Dourif in every film except the 2019 remake when he was voiced by Mark Hamill. It's a hilarious and spooky series at the same time. Chucky is the episode's final Rushmore selection. Thanks as always for joining and watching. To go over my Mount Rushmore of horror villains real quick again: Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Charles Lee Ray, otherwise known as Chucky. I hope you enjoyed and will consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. I will see you next time. Go Birds!